Oh, so you think that Ukraine is going to have to make some concessions? I mean, the other thing is can we really trust Russia as well?
Well, of course we can't trust Russia, Danica. Nobody trusts Russia, but nevertheless, they are war weary. They have got to want this thing to come to an end, but they have to get something. Some years ago, Russia marched in and seized Crimea, and they've held on to Crimea. Nobody's talking about Russia giving Crimea back. And I think the path to peace here probably lies in a ceasefire line and ultimately a line basically corresponding to where the armies are, which is what usually happens. And that means that Russia would gain a little bit of Russian-speaking territory there in eastern Ukraine. If Ukraine is not willing to agree to that, it's very hard to see how this war ends.
No, absolutely. Look, I think the world's going to be watching with bated breath to see what happens here because it's been certainly a very long war. Now, meanwhile, Donald Trump has hosted the leaders of sworn enemies, Armenia and Azerbaijan, two former Soviet states, of course, for an official peace signing ceremony at the White House. I've got to say it was quite an extraordinary sight seeing these two countries after all these years come together. John, there's speculation that this is all part of a push for Donald Trump to get that Nobel Peace Prize. He's pulled this summit off. If he then pulls off Russia and Ukraine, should he get it?
Well, if he does that, he should get it. Whether he will is another matter, of course. But this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan goes back to the 1980s, and it seems as if the Trump administration has come up with a creative solution. We'll see if it works, but it's focused on a transportation corridor that would be shared by these two countries. It would be a new trade route between Asia and Europe, and it could result in tens of billions of dollars in economic development for both of these countries. And it also could result in American influence in that region, replacing Russian and Iranian influence. So it's got the potential to be a win-win all the way around, and we'll have to see how it develops.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, as you said, I feel like if he does Russia and Ukraine, surely you've got to give this man the Nobel Peace Prize. He's done one. Let's see what else he can do. Now, this is quite fascinating. Donald Trump has vowed to immediately force all homeless people out of Washington, D.C. to an undisclosed place far away. He's taken to Truth Social, posting, quote, "I'm going to make our capital safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. We want our capital back." Look, John, I'm very curious to know how he plans to do this. He's also spoken not just of the homeless, but also of criminals. I mean, he's spoken about criminals for many, many months now. But will it be easier said than done, in your view, to actually move the homeless out of Washington, D.C.?
Danica, it can be done. Washington, D.C. has been a disgrace for a long time. It's got the fourth highest murder rate of any American city. There are thousands of homeless people. If you go around American cities, there are some where you're stepping over homeless people on the street. There are others where there are no homeless people in sight. We don't have to have this plague all over our urban areas. And that's a matter of local law enforcement. So Trump is going to do a press conference tomorrow. He'll announce more specific plans. The mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, says she's going to cooperate in Trump's efforts here. So I'm hopeful that he's going to be able to clean up Washington, D.C. and make it a capital that the American people can be proud of.
Yeah, look, fair enough, and good on him for trying to do something about it. We'll be watching that closely. Now, Bernie Sanders has slammed former Vice President Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign, accusing it of being heavily influenced by wealthy people. Gee, who would have thought? Here's what he had to say.
One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the working class of this country.
Well, no, I don't think that's, I like Kamala, she's a friend of mine, but her core consultants, were heavily influenced by very wealthy people.
John, I think Bernie Sanders is absolutely spot on. She had all these wealthy mouthpieces. Remember the actors like George Clooney, singer Beyonce. None of these people represented middle America.
Well, here's the problem, Danica. The Democrats are the party of the wealthy. It's not just Kamala Harris. And by the way, Bernie Sanders himself is wealthy. The best demographic the voters have, that the Democrats have in terms of voting, is people with incomes over $200,000 a year. They're always denouncing billionaires, but the reality is that most billionaires who are at all active in politics are on the side of the Democrats. It is the Republicans who are now the party of the working class. The Republicans have figured that out and they're proud of it. But the Democrats really haven't yet come to grips with it, and they don't really have a good way to talk about it.
No, clearly, but you're right about Bernie Sanders, but for once I actually agree with him. He's not wrong, I feel like, what he just said. Now, look, the Global Government Surplus Auction House, this was commissioned by the Biden administration to sell $350 million in unused components of Donald Trump's border wall. It's now claiming that it plans to coordinate with Trump to return some of those materials back to the federal government. John, make sense of this for us. How do you think this would work, and is it a good thing?
Well, what's going on here, Danica, is that Trump was building this border wall between the U.S. and Mexico. And when Joe Biden came in 2021, one of the first things he did was to stop construction of the wall. And at that time, the federal government had bought something in the vicinity of $300 million worth of materials that had not yet been installed, that were awaiting construction. And those materials started getting auctioned off at pennies on the dollar. It was kind of a scandal. So Trump is now trying to get those materials back. And this big auction house has said that they are going to sell the materials back to the federal government at cost. And so that's better than what was happening before. But I think the significant thing is that construction on that border wall is once again underway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about time. I mean, it was obviously a key election promise, so no doubt I'm sure Trump would want to get that back up and running. Now, JD Vance, he's been overseas saying that he does not want the UK to go down what he calls the very dark path to losing free speech. Here he was speaking at a meeting with Britain's Foreign Secretary.
Well, I'd say I've raised concerns about free speech in the United States of America. I think the entire collective West, the transatlantic relationship, our NATO allies, certainly the United States under the Biden administration, got a little too comfortable with censoring rather than engaging with a diverse array of opinions.
John, is he right?
Well, he is right, Danica. He's being kind of diplomatic there, honestly. He's talked about this before. The reality is that the United Kingdom and a number of other European countries embarked on immigration policies that turned out to be disastrous, and people don't like them. And in the UK in particular, instead of facing up to the fact that these policies have failed and trying to do something about it, the government instead is trying to suppress criticism from people who don't like what's happened. And so in the UK, now you can have your doorbell rung and it's a couple of police officers who don't like something that you tweeted. And we've had a number of people in the UK actually imprisoned for saying things that clearly would be constitutionally protected speech here in the United States. And so there is a real issue of free speech. I think it's true across a good part of Europe, and it certainly is true in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think the UK is absolutely stuffed right now. Before I let you go, John, I want to ask you, I mean, we've had JD Vance basically telling the UK off in front of the Foreign Secretary over there. A couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump was in the UK saying pretty much the exact same thing to the UK Prime Minister. What do you make of this technique the White House is using, going to these countries and just telling it like it is?
Well, Donald Trump says what he thinks. You don't have to sit there and speculate about what Donald Trump thinks about something. He'll tell you. And to be honest, Danica, I think these are conversations we need to have. I think that the Europeans needed to be told that they should step up and play their part in NATO. They needed to contribute, and they weren't doing it. They now agree with that. And I think that similarly, it's a good thing for Trump and Vance to say, look, we in the West have for hundreds of years been committed to free speech. It's really the foundation of democracy, and we're seeing it start to slip away. I think it's good that they are pointing these things out.
I completely agree. It's good that they're saying it like it is, and gee, it makes for some good television as well, I've got to say. John Hinderaker, nice to chat with you. Thanks very much for joining us on the show this evening.